Continuing reading in John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion here in the Prefatory Address. But if they are sincere, let them answer me in good faith. In what place and among whom do they think the Church resided after the Council of Basel degraded and deposed Eugenius from the popedom and substituted Amadeus in his place? Do their utmost, they cannot deny that the council was legitimate as far as regards external forms, and was summoned not only by one pontiff, but by two. Eugenius, with the whole herd of cardinals and bishops who had joined him in plotting the dissolution of the council, was there condemned of contumacy, rebellion, and schism. Afterwards, however, aided by the favor of princes, he got back his popedom safe. The election of Amadeus, duly made by the authority of a general holy synod, went to smoke, only he himself was appeased with a cardinal's cap, like a piece of offal thrown to a barking dog. Out of the lap of these rebellious and contumacious schismatics proceeded all future popes, cardinals, bishops, abbots, and presbyters. Here they are caught and cannot escape. For on which party will they bestow the name of Church? Will they deny it to have been a general council, though it lacked nothing as regards external majesty, having been solemnly called by two bulls, consecrated by the legate of the Roman See as its president, constituted regularly in all respects, and continuing in possession of all its honors to the last? Will they admit that Eugenius and his whole train, through whom they have all been consecrated, were schismatical? Let them then either define the form of the Church differently, or, however numerous they are, we will hold them all to be schismatics in having knowingly and willingly received ordination from heretics. But had it never been discovered before that the Church is not tied to external pomp, we are furnished with a lengthened proof in their own conduct in proudly vending themselves to the world under the specious title of Church, notwithstanding that they are the deadly pests of the Church. I speak not of their manners, and of those tragical atrocities with which their whole life teems, since it is said that they are Pharisees whom should be heard, not imitated. By devoting some portion of your leisure to our writings, you will see, not obscurely, that their doctrine, the very doctrine to which they say it is owing that they are the Church, is a deadly murder of souls, the firebrand, ruin, and destruction of the Church. Seventh, and lastly, they are far from candid when they invidiously number up the disturbances, tumults, and disputes which the preaching of our doctrine has brought in its train, and the fruits which, in many instances, it now produces, for the doctrine itself is undeservedly charged with evils which ought to be ascribed to the malice of Satan. It is one of the characteristics of the divine word that, whenever it appears, Satan ceases to slumber and sleep. This is the surest and most unerring test for distinguishing it from false doctrines which readily betray themselves, while they are received by all with willing ears and welcomed by an applauding world. Accordingly, for several ages, during which all things were immersed in profound darkness, almost all mankind were mere jest and sport to the god of this world, who, like any Sardanapalus, idled and luxuriated undisturbed. For what else could he do but laugh and sport while in tranquil and undisputed possession of his kingdom? But when light beaming from above somewhat dissipated the darkness, when the strong man arose and aimed a blow at his kingdom, then, indeed, he began to shake off his wonted torpor and rush to arms. And first he stirred up the hands of men, that by them he might violently suppress the dawning truth. But when this availed him not, he turned to snares, exciting dissensions and disputes about doctrine by means of his Catabaptists and other portentous miscreants, that he might thus obscure and at length extinguish the truth. And now he persists in assailing it with both engines, endeavoring to pluck up the true seed by the violent hand of man, and striving, as much as in him lies, to choke it with his tares, that it may not grow and bear knit. But it will be in vain if we listen to the admonition of the Lord, who long ago disclosed his wiles, that we might not be taken unawares, and armed us with full protection against all his machinations. But how malignant to throw upon the word of God itself the blame, either of the seditions which wicked men and rebels, or of the sects which impostors stir up against it. The example, however, is not new. Elijah was interrogated whether it were not he that troubled Israel. Christ was seditious, according to the Jews, and the apostles were charged with the crime of popular commotion. What else do those who, in the present day, impute to us all the disturbances, tumults, and contentions which break out against us? Elijah, however, has taught us our answer in 1 Kings 18, verses 17 and 18. It is not we who disseminate errors or stir up tumults, but they who resist the mighty power of God. But while this single answer is sufficient to rebut the rash charges of these men, it is necessary, on the other hand, to consult for the weaknesses of those who take the alarm at such scandals and not unfrequently waver in perplexity. But that they may not fall away in this perplexity and forfeit their good degree, let them know that the apostles in their day experienced the very things which now befall us. There were then unlearned and unstable men, as Peter tells us in 2 Peter 3, verse 16, wrested the inspired writings of Paul to their own destruction. There were despisers of God who, when they heard that sin abounded in order that grace might more abound, immediately inferred, quote, "We will continue in sin that grace may abound," unquote, Romans 6, verse 1. When they heard that believers were not under the law, but under grace, forthwith sung out, quote, "We will sin because we are not under the law, but under grace," unquote, Romans 6, verse 15. There are some who charge the apostle with being the minister of sin. Many false prophets entered in privily to pull down the churches which he had reared. Some preached the gospel through envy and strife, not sincerely, Philippians 1:15, maliciously even, thinking to add affliction to his bonds. Elsewhere the gospel made little progress. All sought their own, not the things which were Jesus Christ's. Others went back, like the dog to his vomit, or the sow that was washed to her wallowing in the mire. Great numbers perverted their spiritual freedom to carnal licentiousness. False brethren crept in to the imminent danger of the faithful. Among the brethren themselves various quarrels arose. What, then, were the apostles to do? Were they either to dissemble for the time, or rather lay aside and abandon that gospel which they saw to be the seed-bed of so many strifes, the source of so many perils, the occasion of so many scandals? In straits of this kind, they remembered that, quote, Christ was a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, unquote, quote, set up for the fall and rising again of many, and, quote, for a sign to be spoken against, unquote, Luke 2, verse 34. And armed with this assurance, they proceeded boldly through all perils, from tumults and scandals. It becomes us to be supported by the same consideration, since Paul declares that it is a never-failing characteristic of the gospel to be a, quote, savor of death unto death in them that perish, unquote. 2 Corinthians 2, verse 16. Although rather destined to us for the purpose of being a savor of life unto life, in the power of God for the salvation of believers. This we should certainly experience it to be, did we not by our ingratitude corrupt this unspeakable gift of God, and turn to our destruction what ought to be our only saving defense.